Thanks for taking the opportunity to chat with me today. I can't believe it's already been 2 years, and within those 2 years, we have been through so much. We've lived through the pandemic together, and the pandemic is still going strong. So it's definitely been an adventurous and eventful 2 years. We've gotten to know you over the 2 years. You've become a big part of the Left Fashion Lab family. And I'm grateful for you taking the opportunity to chat with me today and to share your experience with us.
Absolutely. Love to.
All right, then. So how we're going to do this is we're going to first start by talking about what you were thinking and feeling before joining Le Fashion Lab. And then after that, we'll transition to the actual Le Fashion Lab experience, especially at the beginning and the middle. And then finally, how it all shook out. So first question, if you remember, right before starting Le Fashion Lab, what were some of the fears and frustrations that you had?
Okay, right before Le Fashion Lab, some fears and frustrations I had was, I started as an entrepreneur in college with my fashion brand. And once it evolved into, I went through so many names, of course, but once it evolved into Sort of Wild, and I had like my brand together and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was teaching myself how to sew, and I just things that I wanted to do, like I would have these ideas, but there were certain things that would stop me from completing them. So I had so many different pieces just everywhere that I never finished because I would try to figure out how to do them. So that was a part of my frustration, just having that mental block of not knowing what would be next with sewing the pieces, even though I had the patterns. And I didn't really like patterns because, you shop for patterns and then you're like, oh, okay, I need a size 4. But then when you make it, I'm like, is this a size 10? Like, what is this? So that was a part of the frustration before I joined. And then also my fear was that I'm creating this blockage from becoming better as a designer because I didn't have the knowledge that I wanted to become better. So that was what led me to the Fashion Lab. I have a degree in apparel, textile, technology, and product development, but that was the technical part or the engineering part, like the production, the manufacturing, knowing the steps that it takes to go from concept or ideation to like a finished product. But the in-between part is what I was missing. Okay. So as far as like hands-on fabrication, but I had all of like the technical pieces, like the spec sheets and things of that nature. Yeah. Okay. Like the programs, like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and then also at the time it was called Gerber, but it's called Optitex now, I believe. So I had all of that background, but I wanted to put it together.
Got it. So it's like you had the background with knowing how to come up with the idea, pull it together maybe in a portfolio or a mood board, and put together the spec sheet, etc. But you didn't necessarily know how to make the garments.
Yeah, like from start to finish, I didn't. Okay. And we did a little bit of pattern making and things. We had maybe like 1 or 2 classes, but it wasn't connecting for me until like later on.
Got it. Okay, understand. And I think you somewhat answered this question already, but what were the dreams and desires that you had?
Okay, so my dreams and desires I had initially, I knew that I wanted a fashion brand, and I knew that's where I needed to be, but I didn't know to what extent. So can you hear the music in the background?
Can't.
Okay, because it's like really loud. Okay, and of course it always starts when you're on
yes.
So my dreams, I knew that I wanted to be a designer. And initially and we'll probably talk about this a little later, but I didn't realize that it was right in front of my face my entire life. I just had to go through a lot of things to realize that this was what, this was what I wanted.
Got
this
it.
for me. I started in architecture in college, and then somehow the program found me, or I found it, and then we kind of went from there. So just finding that sense of knowing that, okay, I'm supposed to be a designer. I started to put my dreams together, and my dreams were I've always been an artist as well, and my dream was to merge them together. And the closest I've gotten before joining Fashion Lab, the Fashion Lab was incorporating tie-dye into my brand. And I started tie-dye 5 years before it caught on. And then when it caught on, I was like, now everybody's doing it. So let's proceed. Let's make this bigger, or let's think of ideas that are bigger than what's already here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Why did you choose the Fashion Lab?
I chose the Fashion Lab. I did a lot of research, and tuition scared me because I had already gone through school twice. I went through school for my bachelor's, and then I went back again for my master's. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Because I don't want to take any loans out again. Like, what can I do that's affordable? So I tried this other school, and I don't even know if it's open anymore. It's called Botter.
Oh yeah, Botter. They closed down. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tried them, and I was like, this tuition is still not going to work. And then I have a mentor that she went to Botter like so long ago, and she advised me about that school, and I was like, man, that's not going to work. So when I think I visited you all's website for like a year or something before I even decided to dive in. And then when I did, I said, okay, well, they have individual classes. So let me just start with one and see what'll happen. And this was when you guys were located.
Was it at the goat farm, or was it in Chambly?
It was Chambly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I had the class with Ms. Marva. I think it was me and like 4 other students. And I took that one class, and I was like, I really like it. It was great. And then life started happening. I was like, okay, I gotta hang on a second, and then I'll revisit. So I think after that, how long was that? Because you were at Chambly, then the Goat Farm, and then Nelson Street, right?
Yes, yes.
I don't know how many years that was.
I don't remember myself. Maybe like 3 or so years before you came on board with us full time, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe
Okay.
3 years. Yeah, and still in between that, I took what I learned from the Fashion Lab and used it before I even, joined the full program. And that's how I knew. I was like, this is going to work. Great.
Got it. Okay. All right. So this is a question, just your opinion. Can someone who has never sewn before still succeed at the Fashion Lab?
I believe so, because you all are so detailed in what you're teaching. A lot of times you find at the universities they kind of skip over things. And I mean, to be honest, the program that I go away, bug. The program that I joined at Southern Polytech, it was a good program, but because I just feel like maybe because it was university based, that the classes weren't really well sorted out or planned out, or the curriculum. So I believe going into college, it was a little intimidating because things weren't as clear. But at the Fashion Lab, you all are very, very clear. And you give us what we're going to expect before we even start. You give us a lot of time to look at things, to ask questions before you even begin. All the instructions, classes, the times, the details of what we're going to do per class. Supplies, everything is way more detailed than you would ever get at a university. So I think that a person that's starting off with no knowledge of it, they they could do it, but they have to be extremely humble, because sometimes we do go into things thinking that we know a lot, and we really don't. We just know the surface, but the parts that are underneath that actually make up everything. Like the Fashion Lab is the machine, and all of the instruction that we're getting are the different parts inside the machine. But if you never open it and look at it, but you know how to work the machine, sometimes that doesn't work either. So you do have to go in being very humble, but I do believe that somebody who doesn't have any experience can do it.
Got it. Okay. All right then. So that was like your mindset before you started the classes with us, at what was going through your brain. Now let's talk about when you actually started with the program. So as you went through the program, how has your perspective, your knowledge, and how have your skills changed? If you can think of like beginning to now.
Okay. Okay, so I knew I had certain skills before beginning, but as I said earlier, I made sure that I was humble and not going in like, oh yeah, I know this, I know that. I'm like, because how it's a lot of times that blocks learning abilities. So when I went in, I said, okay, this is what I want to do. So whatever happens or whatever they teach me, I just need to take that and understand how to put things together. Because a lot of times what people have to understand too is you may not learn every single thing that you want to learn in fashion when you go to school or any school, and you just have to make sure you understand that the pieces you're learning are going to help you put even bigger ideas together. So I had to keep telling myself that, okay, if you just work hard and make sure that you understand what's being given to you, you're going to have to use that to make things, flow a little better, especially in your mind. Like sometimes, somebody's like, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But, yeah, I think, and a number one thing I always say is the word fear. I had to learn over the years that the word fear is not a bad word. I was terrified going into the Fashion Lab because I was like, okay, if I come in here and there's, all these students, they're probably just coming to school and they already know some things. And, what if I can't keep up? But then I said, well, don't say that, because your classmates are going to be the ones that go through the whole journey with you, and you'll be able to use them as well for help, But then I didn't have any classmates.
Yeah, then your classmates left you all by yourself.
Yeah, they left me. So I was like, okay. So it was definitely a different experience than what was planned. But sometimes, and I always believe this too, when you ask for things from God and he'll give it to you, but it's just not going to be the way that you ask him for them, So
yeah,
I had to figure that out.
That's it. Okay, what was different? Oh, well, you just told me one thing that was different. You were expecting that you'd have classmates, and then the pandemic hit, and your other two classmates went away. So in addition to that, what was different than what you expected?
That's when the word fear comes back again, because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have any hands-on. I'm a very hands-on person. I don't have any hands-on. I'm going to be virtual. Like, how am I going to understand what I'm supposed to do? But then when I started really working with Ms. Marva, Ms. Ruchika, Ms. Gayla, and you, and it forced me to change the way I think or the way I see things. I really have to pay attention, because there's nobody here to touch this paper for me, put this there, put this there. And then I realized, okay, that may be babying a little bit,
Yeah.
So it made me stronger for me to sit there and figure out, okay, what do I do next? And then even if I don't know what to do next, I know certain things to do to understand what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pandemic actually helped me more than anything.
That's good. That's an interesting point. I'll just talk to give people like background context on what you're saying. Kenshayla started out in the in-person program, and then through the pandemic switched to virtual, and then stayed virtual for the rest of our program. And that is something that we did realize after we started virtual classes, was that it was an opportunity for students to not be coddled as much. And we saw a lot of growth and learning and advancements from our online students, because even though the instructor is there giving the demonstration live and the student is there doing their work live, like Kenshayla said, the instructor can't touch your paper, she can't touch your fabric, flip it over for you, maybe sew a little piece for you. So you are much more independent than you would be in person. And so it forces you to grow and to think differently. So just to give a little bit of context about that. That makes sense, Kenshayla. Yeah. So what was a great benefit that you hadn't expected?
That a really great benefit is becoming, it's like a family, you know, it's, you all are always concerned about anything, not just payments and making sure I get through the classes. Like you all really were and still are very compassionate and considerate of all the students. And you know, it's kind of like, for instance, Ms. Marva, I spent so much time with Ms. Marva. I just feel like she's like an auntie or something, you know? And one day I got in so much trouble because she figured out that I wasn't spending as much time as I should with practicing. And it was because my schedule, my work-life balance with school, it was wonky at the time.
There was no balance.
Yeah. And I was like trying to still work through it and keep going. And she fussed at me so bad. And I was just sitting there. I was so quiet. And she was like, "Are you listening to me?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. I don't have nothing to say because you're right." And she came back later and she was like, "I'm sorry, I may have just been really hard on you." And I said, "No." I said, "I needed that, you know, if you didn't care, you would have never done that." So that's a part of that's like number one part of why the Fashion Lab is so great, because no matter, you know, what people are going through, knowing that when you get to school, it's gonna, if it's wearing on you, you all will notice and you will ask, make sure, you know, we're okay, or, you know, try to help us any way you can. On top of teaching us something that can make us so great in life. Like I feel like it's a win-win at the Fashion Lab with that.
Thank you, Kenshayla. What are some of the triumphs or victories that you had?
Oh my gosh, I think every session was a victory. Like every single section, you go into it and you're like, "Oh my God, I'm doing pattern making. Like, how am I going to wrap my mind around this?" And then when you finish and you see all these patterns you made, you're like, "What? I did that." So I think every section is a victory. It gets harder, but every single section from the very beginning, I feel like is a victory. And I felt really, really accomplished when I did the class with Miss Gayla, where I had to create the concept and then like make the piece.
The intermediate draping class.
Yeah.
That's like one of people's favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even, when I sketched, I followed the instructions and I sketched what you told me to sketch. And then the next class, you were like, "Oh, you're going to use this sketch and you're going to make it." I was like, "What?" And I'm like, "You didn't tell me that before I did that." So that's what I like. I like the challenges. And I looked at the pattern, or I looked at the sketch, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's a lot of pieces that I have to do. So I went into it and I did the fabric shopping, and I was trying to, a lot of times when you go into the fabric store, you know what you want before you get there. And then when you get there, you're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff. Like, where do I start? That was a great experience and practice. And then after I finished and I looked at the dress, I was like, I did that. So I think overall you have victories and triumphs throughout the whole entire program. Gotcha. Even with things that I knew, well, I didn't even really know that I could do it, like the illustration. I mean, because I've been drawing my whole life, but this is different. So that was a really great accomplishment, a triumph for me too. And it was a very different perspective. I was like, oh my God, I did all these. And my mom was like, oh my God, you drew me, even though she knew that, I can draw already. But it's certain things that you think you can do already. And then once you start working with the instructors, they push you so much. You're like, I can't believe I did that, So it's throughout the entire program to me.
Got it. Victories throughout the way. Okay. Got it. All right. How much time did you spend practicing per week?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, my schedule was so crazy. I would at the least, I would do 30 minutes to an hour a day. Some days I would have to not do anything, but then I would make up for it other days. So some of my days would be 30 minutes. Some days would be maybe 2 hours. Some would be like a whole night, like the day before coming to class. So I'll be in class like, I'm okay. So sleepy. But you do have to practice. I feel like, just being honest, I didn't practice enough. I don't think I practiced enough. And I think that was just because work-life balance of me trying to just keep going. But you do have to practice a lot to understand things. And Ms. Marva, she drilled it in my head. She was like, you need to do it until you can just boom, it just happens. Like effortlessly. She always told me that. So, and I use that for a lot of things now too, not just for fashion. Just keep going until it's like a no-brainer, and then you got it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do recommend practicing more than 30 minutes a day. But if that's not a possibility, get the 30 minutes in, even if it's just reading, even if it's just looking ahead on things that you're going to go over for that class, and just try to prepare yourself as much as possible, and just try and connect things together. Why is this like this? Like, why am I moving from this class to this class? Oh, because, this, and this. So, yeah, every little bit helps.
Got it. Yeah. Practice makes perfect in any context.
Any context, yes.
At this point, now we're transitioning closer to the end of the program now. Okay. What have you achieved, and what are you most proud of?
Overall, I'm most proud of finishing this program pregnant. Because it was so difficult. Like, your body just goes through all these things, and, maybe the baby doesn't want you to stand up, doesn't want you to sit down. She wants you to go to sleep. It was really, really hard, but I think that was a very pivotal learning point for me too. Okay, tell me the question again. I'm having pregnancy.
What are you most proud of?
Okay, yes, I was most proud of that. I was most proud of knowing and understanding that I can bring concepts to reality. Because when I did those sketches, once again, I did those sketches that were somewhat difficult, and I was like, I gotta make this. Oh my God. So just looking at the pieces, and I look at them almost every day now, my last collection, I'm like, oh my gosh, you really did this. Those are the top two. Yeah, those are the top two, definitely. For me.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Bringing those concepts to reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So I'm going to ask you some small specific questions. So I'm going to give you like a skill area, and you're going to think about what your skill level was before you joined us and then after you joined us. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, or 0 to 10, with 0 being no experience and 10 being you feel really confident about it. So in the beginning, find sewing techniques and how to finish garments professionally before you joined the Fashion Lab.
Oh my goodness. Maybe I was at I'll say a 0.5 before.
Okay. How do you feel now?
I would say I think I'm at like a 9. I could use more practice, of course. But I think I'm at maybe at a 9 out of 10. I think I do pretty well with that.
Okay. And how to make patterns?
Oh my gosh, I was at 0.
Okay.
But I feel like now, I feel like I can make some pretty good patterns. I say I'm probably at a 10, maybe 9.5.
Okay. Fashion sketching and illustration.
Okay, fashion sketching. I would say maybe I was at like a 5 or 6 just because I knew how to draw before. But now I think that one probably that may be a 10.
Okay. All right, putting together a fashion portfolio.
Oh. I would say at the beginning maybe like a 2 or 3 just because of college. We're receiving my bachelor's, but now I definitely understand how to do it. So I would say 8, maybe, because I feel like I have a little bit more to go with like making sure that my mood boards really make sense, the wording that I use. I think I'm gonna need, some more practice with that as I continue to do them. So I would say 8.
Got it. Okay. And how about coming up with a design concept and bringing it to life with your garment construction skills?
Okay. So maybe, well, you've told me that I was good with concepts. I didn't realize it. So I would do maybe like 5. But then after the Fashion Lab, I think I'm pretty good with that. I would say 9. I don't know. I hate to it's hard rating myself really high because I feel like I can always do better.
Yeah. That's the thing. And we can always do better. That is true. But that's some good growth that you shared with us. Oh, one thing you didn't share with us, and something I'm proud of you for, having gotten the opportunity to contract with Target for a bit. Tell us a little more about that.
Oh my gosh, that was like one of my number one fears, but I just did it because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like real world application. So
give us some background about the opportunity, and then tell us some more about your fear, etc.
Okay, so the design director, I believe it was a couple of them that I met. I met Kayla first, then I met Teresa, and then they set up a call with like all these other students or all these other designers that just finished school. And then there were a few people in there that never went to school before, but they were designing, and they reached out to Target themselves, and they were able to join the group. And we had a really great conversation. Everybody introduced themselves, and they were telling us a background on the products that they create. And this was just for kids. So it was the infant, toddler, and kids that they were explaining to us, and also accessories, which was pretty new to me. So that part was very interesting. to know how detailed they have to go into, you know, creating book bags and hair bows and things like that. And I think it was pretty cool just hearing the other students' backgrounds and knowing that I wasn't the only one that was, you know, just finishing school and just joining Target. So they made sure that that we were comfortable with joining. So I really like that. So next was they basically created a pool of people that were on the call. And then they were pulling us from that pool to see where we could go. And we had individual conversations with the team too. So after that, I think I'm saying it correctly. So after the conversation with all of the students, they set up calls based on the department they wanted us to be on or involved in. And we had a conversation with the designers, which I thought was pretty interesting too. And then they gave us even more insight on what Target is about. And I found it very interesting as well that they offer so much training, like with Clo, which is the new Optitex that's out there, and it's more like 3D. You can see the clothes draping a little more. They offer so much training, concept board. They offered, you know, they even offered Adobe Illustrator and it was one other in Spark, which is their PLM system. Mm-hmm. And the assignments that I had, Teresa really wanted me to be on accessories, and I was so nervous because I've never done accessories before. So it was interesting that she was eager to work with me on something that she knew I didn't have any experience in. So that was a really good sign from Target that, you know, they're reaching out to people who are just wanting to get out there and do their best, but they don't know where to begin.
Right.
So I think that was very, very, I appreciated that a lot. And I learned so much about like the trending, where they start from the beginning to even start like back to school. That's what I was working on with them. And the process that they do to gain those ideas and start concepting for accessories for back to school. It was really cool.
Okay.
I had to do some shopping, window shopping, and kind of put some concepts together and send it to them. And it was pretty cool. Hopefully I can pick back up with them.
Yeah. So let me give some context. So I was a designer for Target, and a few of my former co-workers, actually one of them who is a design director, she reached out to me and said that she noticed the Fashion Lab and she was very pleased with what we're doing, and she's wondering if any of our graduates would be interested in contracting with Target because they're looking to build out their team or their pool of contractors. And so Kenshayla was one of the recipients of that opportunity. So she got the opportunity to start some training with them and start some work with them as a contractor. So she was able to still live in the Georgia area and work remotely for Target in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. But Kenshayla is pregnant now, so she had to step back from that a bit, and hopefully after she's done with maternity leave, then she'll be able to pick that back up. So just to give you some context about what that was. Yes. All right. So this is a very simple question, straightforward question. Are you happy with the skills you've gained at the Fashion Lab?
Yes. Greatly.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up a bit then. So in thinking about your Le Fashion Lab journey, what do you wish you'd known before you joined Le Fashion Lab?
I would say maybe the intensity. I don't know. And I'm not saying like it was like, oh my gosh, it's just dire, but I just wish that I would have knew a little bit more about the intensity to prepare myself for the journey. It was a great journey, but that was, I think that's the number one thing, you know. I was like, okay, Saturdays for 2 years, I can do that. If this is something I want to do, then I'm gonna do it. But I mean, it was hard having classes on Saturdays, you know, because I work Monday through Friday full time, and then, you know, fitting in time to practice and then having to go to school on Saturdays. I just had really that one day out of the week where I could like catch up, but it still wasn't enough time. So that's the number one thing that I wish I would have known.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think out of everything, that's probably it.
Got you. All right, here's the next question. What would you say to any prospects interested in joining Le Fashion Lab?
I would say do your research, because a lot of times people throw the word fashion designer around like it's just something that's so simple, and it's not. Okay, like if you know you want to make dresses and stuff like that, well, honey, you're gonna have to understand that you're gonna have to go through an entire process before you even get to fabric to even make a dress. Okay. So I think that's most important, knowing that it's just not a word, you know, that when I say it's thrown around sometimes, like,
you mean the word fashion designer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's not taken as seriously as it should by a lot of people, because, for instance, I don't want to offend anybody. I really don't, but I'm just going to say the best way I can. But, you know, if you have like an online boutique and you're ordering the clothes and stuff like that, you know, for resale, then the word may be thrown around a bit, right? But then when you get into the program and you're like, I have to do what? I just wanted to be able to be a stylist, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just have to understand or do your research and know that it's not just learning. It's not just it's a knowledge-based program, but it's also physical, mental, emotional. It's all of that together. Yes, you can go to school for fashion design to be a stylist, to understand things, but you still have to do the physical work to get to that point. And I think I think it has a lot to do with maybe social media. It gets like thrown around a bit. But I definitely feel like the intensity of becoming a designer, it needs to be put out there more, you know? Like people work really hard, and, you know, even like Project Runway, it may seem like it's so easy for them to get there, but they work hard to get where they are. And it's important for people to understand that, you know. I think that the concept or the word fashion design is just like when we were talking about costume designer with Ms. Zena. It's the same thing. Like, people don't really understand the work that goes into the name of something. So I hope I said that. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but that's kind of how I always thought of it. And it made more sense after I finished the fashion lab. And some people go to school for, like, you went to school at SCAD for, did you go for 4 years?
Because it was a grad program, I was there for like 2.5 years.
2.5, yeah. I mean, and it's intense. Like, you have to be all the way in it the whole time, or you're not going to even survive.
Yeah.
So I think that's like my number one there.
Got it. Good advice. All right. And then, based on your opinion now, who would you say is the ideal Fashion Lab candidate? What traits and desires should this person have?
The ideal candidate is somebody who, I think, and this is just from my perspective, going in not knowing everything. You can't know everything. I didn't even know how I was going to pay for school, but all I know was I'm going in here, I'm going to figure this out. This is how it's going to work for now. This is what I'm going to start with, and then I can build my plan. It's okay to not have a plan right then and there before you start something, because you don't really know. So you can have a plan to start off, but, you know, it may not work like that, and you have to be open to changes. So I think the desire to want to learn is the most important, and you have to keep that desire no matter what. You know, I had some pretty difficult times, you know, throughout the program, but I just wanted to learn. I used to get up and I was so tired and it would be all over my face. And Ms. Mara would be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, but I'm not fine." But I have to do this because this is what I said I was going to do. So I need to do it. And nobody's going to keep pushing you as much as you're going to push yourself. You know, you all are really, really supportive, but it still takes that desire within yourself to continue. Okay, so the desire to want to be great. You have to want to be great. Yeah. You can't just go into something and be like, "Oh, when I come out, I'm going to be like Pierre Moss or something." Who else? Sachi. It's going to just miraculously happen. You have to figure it out, you know, even afterwards, you know, you have the skill set. What are you going to do with it? And it may not be what you intended on doing before. So for instance, I thought I was going to be into custom designs. And then when I talked to you, I was like, no, I want to do production and, you know.
Yeah.
So just having those sparks of wanting to learn more, being humble, pushing yourself, and just getting over those humps, because it's not going to be smooth sailing. Nothing is ever smooth sailing, even if you know what you're doing. It's never going to be full smooth sailing. So you just have to go in with that type of mindset, and everything will be okay, even when it's hard. It'll be fine.
So you just have to have that strong desire that pushes you to not quit, even when things get a little challenging, and say, be open to your plan changing along the way, because you might have a plan and realize that it doesn't quite work out like that. Would that be what you said? Okay.
Yeah.
Those are some good words.
For instance, I just finished and it's October and the schedule said August. And I'm like, it didn't go the way it was planned. And I still remember the Saturday before my very last stitch of this collection. As soon as I walked outside and got in the car, Miss Nicola, I just bawled out crying. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if it's because I'm pregnant. I think I still cry if I wasn't pregnant. And I just had to say, okay, now that you got it out, you still have to come. You can't just stop. But afterwards, I said that was because I was at the end of the road for this part, and I just had to push a little bit more, but nobody else could push me the way that I needed to push myself to complete the program. Yeah. I cried so hard. My face was just as dry when I got out of the car. And my husband was like, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. I just had to cry on the way home. I was just driving and crying. With my little bag in the back and my little garments hanging up on the thing. I was just crying. I was like, I can't believe I'm still doing this. I'm just so tired. I was tired.
Yeah.
I was really tired. And but after I finished, I just felt so good. And then receiving the certification in the mail the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm really holding this. 2-3 weeks ago, I was crying. Oh my gosh. So, yes, I had a great experience. I mean, all the way through. I did.
Great. Kenshayla, thanks for chatting with me. Over the 2 years, like you said, honestly, truly, you've become part of our family. I hope that you will continue to be a part of us even after you're done. I look forward to your final photo shoot that we have coming up in a few weeks.
Yay!
Yeah. And I'm so happy to see your journey. I've always seen that designer in you, and that I remember you said in the beginning you wanted to merge your artistry with fashion design, and I definitely see that as one of your greatest strengths. And I look forward to seeing more from you in the future, especially after baby has come.
Yes, I just really, really love you guys. And I always tell people about you all's program. And I just feel like if you go through this program, doing what you need to do, there's absolutely no way that we can just like lose contact or communication. Like you all are with me forever. And it just makes sense that way, you know.
Yeah.
I always tell my mom I cannot imagine like not talking or speaking to you all. And even Miss Marva texted me I think it was like last Saturday. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you're not here." Like what? And I'm like, yeah, I was thinking about that too. But you all are truly family to me. And I just can't wait to see like everything that happens in the future between us. I know it's gonna be great.
Thank you, Kenshayla. All our love, and we will chat soon.
Okay.
All right. I'll stop the recording there, but then we can just wrap up now. So today is, so you're going